I think we all at this table believe nobody should have to go to jail for smoking weed. And what we need to do is recognize that far too many people have been sent to jail for simple marijuana possession.
In today's Spotlight, Vice President Kamala Harris hosting the Biden administration's first ever public event on marijuana reform with rapper Fat Joe and Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, who has taken executive action to reform marijuana laws in his state and individuals who received pardons for prior offenses. Now, this comes on the heels of the State of the Union message where President Biden announced he directed his cabinet to review the federal classification of marijuana and said that he's, quote, expunging thousands of convictions for mere possession because no one should be jailed for simply using the drug. Let's bring back my panel, Mike, John, Christina, and joining our panel, ABC News medical contributor and pediatrician at Stanford's Children's Health, Dr. Alok Patel. Now, Christina, will the Biden administration's support of marijuana reform move the needle with voters, especially younger ones, for their re-election campaign?
Absolutely. Right now, we're at a historic high where 70% of adult Americans support the legalization of marijuana. You want to talk about a popular policy with young people, legalizing marijuana, and especially with communities that have been harmed by the war on drugs, because it's not just about legalizing its use, it's about addressing the long-term harm that have been disproportionately impacting, especially Black and brown communities. You know, we have former Speaker John Boehner that sits on the board of a cannabis corporation where he oversaw policy where thousands and thousands of people were sent to prison for simply smoking and using marijuana. So it is long overdue, incredibly popular, and it's going to make my job of mobilizing young voters this election a lot easier, I'll tell you that.
Now, John, President Biden has used his clemency powers to pardon several people convicted of nonviolent crimes and to commute the sentences of dozens of individuals convicted of nonviolent drug crimes. Now, you're a former prosecutor. Where do you come down on this?
Well, it seems to me that the White House is taking a floater on whether or not this is going to resonate with the young adults, like Christine said. And I think it will to some extent, but let's make no mistake about this. In the federal system, you don't go to prison for possessing marijuana. You go to prison for possessing with intent to distribute. That means you're a drug dealer. That's a very big difference, right? But make no mistake about this. This is a popular thing with respect to young adults. I'm just not sure it's going to resonate and make much of a difference in the campaign. Things like Gaza and Israel, those are going on. They're concerned about his age. They're worried about that, too. So I think this will be in the mix, but it's not going to be a game changer.
Now, Mike, according to the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, African Americans are arrested for violating marijuana possession laws at nearly 4 times the rates of whites. Yet, both ethnicities consume marijuana at roughly the same rates. How important is it for the Biden administration and VP Harris to speak out on these inequities?
Well, first of all, we have to look at the inequities of how this even position and the conversation's even going, right? When it comes to, as Christina was mentioning, the impact negatively and criminality is involved against Black and browns. But once you start having the dynamic of opioid use, then it becomes a health care issue, right? So I think we have to look at that perspective. John, yes, they are being arrested for drug dealing and drug possession, but what I can't reconcile is that the patchwork of a system that we have in the United States, where in some states it's legal to use and to sell cannabis, in other states it's not legal or to sell cannabis. So you have some individuals, disproportionately Black and brown, who are locked up in prison for distributing marijuana, where you have some individuals in some states who are still making money off of cannabis, are able to walk around in flip-flops and board shorts. And so we have to do that. So with this conversation right now about the declassification of the drug itself would help to begin a national legalization level so we can get rid of the disparity and the inequities of prison sentencing versus those who are actually making money off of the legal sale of cannabis.
Yeah, if I can interject for a moment, based on my time as a prosecutor federally, I think Mike's right. There needs to be some uniformity. If marijuana is legal in some states right now, you can't even use banks because federally marijuana is still illegal. So we've got to have some sort of set system nationwide for marijuana, and I think the way it's going is probably the right way to go.
And they can't even do digital ad campaigns neither, to what John is saying. They can't even do digital ad campaigns because it's not federal.
A lot of issues to talk about here, gentlemen. That's right. But I want to get to Dr. Patel right now. Recreational marijuana, now that's been legalized in several states, and there's also people who need it for medical use. Do you agree with Vice President Harris when she says that prison isn't the answer when dealing with marijuana use?
I do. I think that we're decades away from looking at marijuana as a restricted substance and the criminalization. And I think it's going to be popular that we're having the conversation about it. We just have to make sure that we're balancing what you mentioned, the fact that recreational marijuana is legalized in 24 states. 38 states are allowed medical marijuana. We have to make sure that we're paying attention to the potential for research and all the therapeutic benefits of medical marijuana in the future. And by moving away from criminalization, we will potentially open up research dollars and more interest in this space. But we got to be realistic. Pediatrician here, I also see a lot of young people using cannabis products. You know, in that age group of 19 to 30, we're at an all-time high, no pun intended, of cannabis use. And there's a lot of unknowns. There's effects on cardiovascular system, on the developing brain. We are seeing more and more kids, especially in southern and midwestern states, using Delta 8 THC, which is regulated differently than Delta 9 THC. So there's some of these questions that we inevitably are going to run into, but we need to be having this conversation as marijuana becomes more widespread and more accessible.
It's also, too, just not a Democratic issue. It's a Democratic and Republican issue, too, as Christina talked about John Boehner. So there are Republicans involved. And there's also, too, just not a young person issue. This is a big issue for adults as well as for family members who have been negatively impacted by their loved ones being locked up in prison. So this is an intergenerational issue, too, as well.
It's a massive issue with several questions remain unanswered. Mike, John, Christina, and Dr. Patel, thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.